Dear friends, English Literature, Introduction to Drama, Ants and the Man by George Bernard Shaw. Short questions with answers. Short questions 33 to 42. Question 33. What is a better weapon than the revolver to Bluntschli? How? Answer. Rainer's cloak is a better weapon than the revolver to Bluntschli. Being defeated at the Battle of Slivnica, he takes shelter in Rainer's bedroom in order to save his life. At the time of his entry into her room, she was in her night dress. He threatens to shoot her if she shouts, and he assures her that if she does not shout, he will do no harm to her. He also reminds her that as she is not properly dressed, she should not allow the Bulgarian soldiers to enter her room. Upon this, she tries to pick up her cloak from the ottoman to cover her body. She stops her, raising his pistol, and snatches her cloak and gives it to himself. To Bluntschli, the possession of Rainer's cloak is a better weapon than the revolver, which has no cutters. He thinks that if she is not modestly dressed, her sense of womanly delicacy will certainly prevent her from allowing the Bulgarian soldiers to enter her room. If the soldiers cannot intrude the room, they will not be able to find him, kill him. Thus, the possession of her cloak, he thinks, will provide him a better means of self-defense. Question 34. Describe Rainer's reaction to it. Answer. Rainer protests against such unmanly conduct of Bluntschli. She is shocked at his rude behavior. She says that it is not a gentlemanlike act to take away a lady's cloak and use it as a weapon of protection for himself. Rainer was in her nightgown, which hardly covers her body. It is a matter of shame for a woman to appear before a person of opposite sex without being properly dressed. Bluntschli is already in her bedroom, so she urgently needs wearing the cloak to cover her body and to dispel her shyness. But Bluntschli takes the possession of the cloak and is determined not to let her get it back. So Rainer feels disgusted at this shameless act of Bluntschli and strongly protests against it. She thinks that he is not a gentleman at all, because no gentleman ever takes such undue advantage of a woman's sense of delicacy. He must be a barbarian to use such a weapon for his protection. Question 35. On what context does Bluntschli utter these words? Answer. Being defeated at the Battle of Slivnica, Bluntschli takes shelter in Rainer's bedroom with a view to saving his life. He threatens to shoot her if she raises any alarm, but he assures her that he will not do so, or he will do no harm to her if she remains silent. He tells her that the Bulgarian soldiers are chasing him. If he is found, he will be killed. She helps him to hide behind the curtains. The Russian officer enters her room and fails to discover Bluntschli. Even the Russian officer does not notice Bluntschli's pistol, which was kept on the ottoman. When the Russian officer leaves the room, Rainer, not seeing the pistol, sits on it and jumps up with a cry of fear. Upon this, Bluntschli tells her not to be afraid of the pistol because it is not loaded. She hands the pistol over to him and asks him to load it with cartridges so that he can protect himself against her. He frankly admits that he has no ammunition, no cartridges with him to fill the pistol. In his opinion, cartridges are of no use to a soldier in the battlefield. Soldiers take pistols with them in the battlefield only for show. Instead of cartridges, he takes chocolates in his battlefield to keep him fit and fresh. From his experience, he has learned that food is more useful to a fighting soldier than any weapons of war. Food provides him sufficient strength to fight heroically. A soldier cannot show his valor if he remains hungry. Question 36. Bring out the significance of the utterance. Answer. The utterance of Bluntschli is very significant in the arms of the man. Bluntschli is the mouthpiece of Shaw. Here, Shaw demolishes the conventional ideas about war and soldiering through Bluntschli. Bluntschli is a professional soldier. He is practical minded. He has no romantic ideas about war and life. Rhino, on the contrary, has romantic illusions about war and soldiering. She is elated when she comes to know about Sergius' victory at the Battle of Slivnica. But when Bluntschli tells that food is of much greater use in the battlefield than bullets, her romantic ideas of the courage and bravery of soldiers are shattered. It is Shaw's view that in a battle, food is more important than ammunition. He means that a man is greater than his arms. A soldier is none but a man, and like every man, he is subject to hunger. Soldiers need arms to bring the enemies under control, but they require adequate food to gauge the strength of operating the arms. This utterance shows that Shaw is a realist. Here he illustrates the truth of the saying, an army marches on its stomach. Question 37. What is Bluntschli's opinion about young soldiers? Answer. According to Bluntschli, there are two sorts of soldiers, old ones and young ones. The young and inexperienced soldiers have aromantic ideas of war. They consider war as a romantic affair. They carry arms with them in the battlefields instead of food. They do not know the value of food in the battlefield. They are full of enthusiasm and led by romantic ideas of soldiering and heroism. As they are now unafraid, they think only of showing their bravery in the battlefield. To show their valor, they carry pistols, cutlasses, and other types of ammunition in their pockets, holsters, and cartridge boxes. Their revolver cases contain no food, and their cartridge boxes carry no chocolate. They carry arms and ammunition in their leather cases. Therefore, these young soldiers are the raw soldiers who think only of fighting bravely without realizing the importance of food in the battlefield. But their romance about war and heroism is shattered in the course of the battle, and learn the reality of war, what is quite different from what they think about it. Question 38. How are the old experienced soldiers, according to him, different from the young ones? Answer. But the old and experienced soldiers, according to Bluntschli, are fully different from the young ones. He points out that the experienced soldiers do not consider war as a romantic affair. They have sufficient experience of fighting. They know that war means destruction. They have learned from their experience that food is more valuable than ammunition in the battlefield, especially in modern warfare. They carry some food in their revolver cases and cartridges boxes because they know that food will save their lives by satisfying their hunger in the battlefield. They realize that the real danger lies not in the army's attack but in the shortage of food supply. They carry food with them, at least they starve to death. They think that they should have food with them because without food they would feel weak and might even collapse while fighting. Thus, the experienced soldiers are quite familiar with the realities of war, and so they carry food inside their leather cases and cartridges boxes instead of weapons and gunpowder. Question 39. Who is Don Quixote? Answer. Don Quixote is the romantic hero of the novel of the same name by the Spanish writer Cervantes, 1547 to 1616. It is a very amusing novel which describes the comic adventures of his hero, Don Quixote, who is entirely an impractical sort of person living in the world of imagination. In the novel, he appears to be utterly ridiculous and absurd. He thought himself to be a medieval knight at arms with cavalry and gallantry as his ideals. He imagined dangers where there are none. Once he saw a windmill in action in front of him. He mistook the sails of the windmill for a monstrous giant. He thought it was his duty to fight with the giant. He therefore attacked the windmill with his sword as if it were his enemy. He cut the sails of the windmill and congratulated himself on his daring adventure. What Don Quixote did was obviously ridiculous because he was completely divorced from the realities of life. He is an idealist who thinks that he is capable of performing heroic deeds, but actually he is a fool. Question 40. Why does Bluntschli compare the leader of cavalry church Sergius to Don Quixote? Answer. Bluntschli compares the leader of the cavalry church Sergius to Don Quixote, the man who indulges in imaginary exploits is often called Don Quixote. Bluntschli tells Reina that the leader of the cavalry charge was not like a real hero. He led the charge like an utter fool. He tried to show his bravery, but did not realize that if the Servians had the right kind of ammunition in their machine guns, the Bulgarians could be massacred. Bluntschli says that while advancing towards the battery of machine guns, Sergius looked like an ideal romantic hero. He compares the movements of Sergius with the hero of an opera. Like the singing hero of an opera, he had a beautiful appearance with bright eyes and nice mustache. He was shouting all the time at the top of his voice to encourage his followers. At the time, he looked like a Don Quixote who once attacked a windmill, taking it for a giant. It was no doubt a ludicrous thing, the foolish act of Sergius in leading the cavalry charge against an artillery was ludicrous as that of Don Quixote. That is why Bluntschli compares the leader of the cavalry charge to Don Quixote. Question 41. Who was Ernani? Answer. Ernani is the titular hero of an opera of the same name by the Italian composer Giuseppe Verdi, 1813 to 1901. He was a Spanish robber captain. He was in love with a woman, Elvira, who was engaged to the old Spanish lord Gomez de Silva. But she did not like Gomez de Silva. Ernani forced another rival in his love, and that rival was Charles V, who fell in love with her. Ernani, being defeated by Charles, fled from the battlefield and entered the palace of his enemy, the Spanish lord Gomez de Silva. Gomez gave him shelter and promised to save him from his foes at any cost. He is determined not to hand him over to Charles. He took Ernani as his guest and thought that it was his holy duty to protect the life of a guest in his house, although at one time this guest was his enemy. They then joined the league against Charles. He gave Gomez a horn and says that he, Ernani, will die when the horn is sounded. Just as Gomez is about to marry Elvira, the horn is sounded and Ernani commits suicide by stabbing her himself. Question 42. Why does Reina refer to Ernani? And so Raina is very proud of her family status. She speaks about culture and advanced ideas of her family. She tries to convince Bluntschli that her family is cultured and civilized. In order to impress him with the fact that they are civilized people, she tells him that they go to Bluntschli, they go to Bucharest every year, and that she has also been to Vienna and spent a whole month there. In this connection, she refers to a scene from Verdi's opera Ernani to make him realize that they were very hospitable and their guest was sacred to them. Ernani had run away from his enemies just as Bluntschli has run away, being defeated by the Bulgarians. His enemies chased him just as the Bulgarian soldiers were chasing Bluntschli. He took shelter in the house of the bitterest enemy. Gomez de Silva, similarly, Bluntschli took shelter in the bedchamber of Raina, who is a Bulgarian lady, and the Bulgarians are Bluntschli's bitterest enemies. Gomez gave him shelter and saved his life just the same way. Raina tells Bluntschli that she is determined to save his life because he is their guest at the time. But it is their duty to protect their guest though he is an enemy of their country. She will protect him, guard him, and not betray him to his enemies. Thank you, friends, for watching my video.